Before we begin, I want you to do something very specific. Think of one moment when your child looked at you, paused for half a second, and then changed their answer. Maybe they said nothing. Maybe they said, "Fine." Maybe they said, "I forgot." Maybe they said, "It's not a big deal." Hold that moment in your mind, because before this video ends, you may realize that what looked like a small lie was never really about the lie. It was about safety. And once you understand that, you will never hear your child the same way again. Most parents believe children lie because they are lazy, manipulative, spoiled, dramatic, or trying to get away with something. Sometimes that is true, but most of the time, especially in normal, everyday family life, children do not lie because they are evil. They lie because the truth feels costly. That is the part almost nobody says out loud. Children are not always asking themselves, what is true? Very often they are asking, what is safe to say here? And the answer to that question is shaped by the emotional climate of the home, far more than most parents realize. A child tells the truth once and gets a lecture. They tell the truth again and get a disappointed face. They tell the truth a third time and get 10 follow-up questions, a speech about consequences, and a mood in the house that lasts for hours. So what do they learn? Not that honesty is good. They already knew that. They learn that honesty is expensive. And when honesty becomes expensive, children do what adults do too. They edit. They delay. They soften. They hide details. They say the smallest version of the truth that will get them out of the moment alive. That is not healthy, but it is human. And this is why some of the biggest trust problems between parents and children are not created by big betrayals. They are created by repeated, ordinary conversations where the parent thinks they are teaching responsibility, but the child is learning emotional risk management. The first mistake parents make is punishing honesty more than dishonesty. Not always with an official punishment, sometimes with energy. A child admits they forgot their homework. Now the room changes. A child admits they broke something. Now your face changes. A child admits they were left out at school, said something rude, got a bad grade, hid a message, or made a poor choice. Now suddenly, the whole house feels emotionally heavier, and the child feels that weight immediately. This is what many parents miss. Children do not just react to consequences, they react to emotional fallout. If telling the truth means disappointing you, stressing you out, triggering a speech, creating tension, ruining dinner, causing a silent ride home, or making them feel stupid for 20 minutes, then even a good child starts learning that honesty comes with too much pain attached. Then parents say, "Why didn't you just tell me?" Because they were not choosing between truth and lies. They were choosing between discomfort levels. This is where child psychology becomes uncomfortable, because children are always studying us. They study our tone, our expression, our speed, the way we say, "Come here," the difference between a calm question and a dangerous calm question. They know when we are genuinely curious, and they know when we are already halfway to judgment. Which means that long before a child becomes openly secretive, they become strategically selective. They tell you enough, but not everything. They tell you the clean version, but not the shameful version. They tell you what happened, but not what it meant to them. And that is where many parent-child relationships start to become emotionally thin. The second mistake is confusing correction with connection. A parent hears a bad answer and thinks, "This is my moment to teach." So the conversation becomes fast, sharp, logical. "Why would you do that? What were you thinking? You need to understand how serious this is." "This is exactly what I warned you about. You always do this. You never listen." And the parent may not even be yelling. They may be speaking in a totally controlled voice, but to the child, the emotional message is still clear. You are in trouble for being difficult to deal with. That is what shuts children down. Because once a child feels like the parent is more interested in control than understanding, they stop bringing raw truth. They start bringing polished truth. And polished truth is one of the saddest things in a family, because it means the child has started managing the parent instead of trusting them. The third mistake parents make is demanding mature honesty from an immature nervous system. Children do not have adult emotional regulation. Teenagers definitely do not have adult emotional regulation. But parents often expect them to confess, explain, take accountability, show insight, accept a boundary, regulate emotions, and speak respectfully, all at the exact moment they are feeling shame, panic, embarrassment, anger, fear, or overwhelm. That is a perfect formula for shutdown. A flooded child is not a truthful child. A flooded child is a defensive child. And in that state, the brain is not asking, how can I be honest and reflective right now? It is asking, how do I get through this? That is why so many children lie badly. Not because they think the lie is brilliant, because the nervous system is looking for immediate escape. Parents see the weak lie and think, does my child think I'm stupid? No, your child is overloaded. And yes, that does not remove accountability, but it changes the order, because if you want the truth, safety has to come before the lesson, not instead of the lesson, before it. That might sound like this. We are going to talk about this, but not like this. I want the truth, and I also want you calm enough to tell it. You are not getting out of this, but you do not have to panic. Take a breath. Start with the part that feels hardest to say. That kind of response is powerful because it lowers the emotional cost of honesty without lowering the standard. The fourth mistake is reacting more strongly to the child's tone than to the child's fear. This happens every day. A child is hiding something. You can feel it. You ask a question. They get defensive. Their voice changes. Their eyes roll. Their answer gets sharper, and the parent instantly locks onto the disrespect. Watch your tone. Don't talk to me like that. Fix your face. Try that again. Now, sometimes that boundary is needed, but many times, the tone is not the real issue. The tone is the smoke. The fire is fear. Fear of getting caught. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of being ashamed. Fear of being cornered. Fear of being turned into a problem. If parents only fight the tone, they often miss the truth hiding underneath it. And when that happens enough times, children learn that the parent can handle clean emotions, but not messy ones. So now the child has two tasks in every hard conversation: hide the problem and hide the panic about the problem. That is exhausting. And exhausted children become more distant, not more honest. The fifth mistake is asking questions that are really accusations in disguise. Tell me the truth. What really happened? Are you hiding something? Why are you acting weird? Is there something you're not telling me? Do I need to worry? Adults hear concern. Children hear danger. Because those questions often arrive with a loaded tone, a tight face, and an expectation that the child either confesses or disappoints. That is not a doorway. That is a trap with polite wording. And once a child feels trapped, the conversation is already broken. This is why the most effective parents are often not the parents who ask the most questions. They are the ones who create the least punishing atmosphere around hard answers. They say less. They observe more. They give the child a second to breathe. They do not rush to fill silence. They do not turn every pause into suspicion. And that matters, because sometimes the difference between honesty and lying is not morality. It is emotional timing. If this is hitting close to home, leave a comment with one real-life moment when you knew your child was hiding something and later realized your reaction probably made it harder for them to tell the truth. Just one honest example. Because a lot of parents think this only happens in their house, and it doesn't. The sixth mistake is making children feel that mistakes change their identity. This one goes deep. A child lies about homework. Now they are lazy. A child hides a message. Now they are sneaky. A child gets defensive. Now they are disrespectful. A child shuts down. Now they are impossible. A child tells a partial truth. Now they are manipulative. The problem with this is not just that it hurts. The problem is that children start feeling that one bad moment becomes a statement about who they are. And when identity feels threatened, honesty gets even harder. Because now the child is no longer just afraid of consequences. They are afraid of becoming the disappointing version of themselves in your eyes. That is when many children start performing. They become over-explainers, chronic deniers, fake agreeable, emotionally blank, or weirdly casual in moments that should matter. Not because they do not care, but because they are trying to avoid being reduced to one ugly label. This is why strong parents learn to separate behavior from identity. That was dishonest, not you are a liar. That was disrespectful, not you are disrespectful. That choice broke trust, not you always ruin everything. That distinction changes the nervous system response immediately. Because correction without humiliation still leaves room for truth. The seventh mistake is making openness feel like loss of control. A lot of children, especially teenagers, do not lie because they love lying. They lie because telling the truth feels like handing over total control of their emotional world. The moment they admit something, adults may take over. Now there is a lecture. Now there is monitoring. Now there is a new rule. Now there is a worried phone call. Now there is a long face. Now there is an emergency family meeting about one awkward mistake. So children begin to protect privacy, even when privacy starts sliding into secrecy. And the more parents respond with emotional chasing, the more children hold the line. This is why some teens would rather risk being caught than volunteer information. Being caught is painful, but volunteering often feels even more exposing. And once you understand that, you stop seeing every lie as proof your child does not respect you. Sometimes, a lie is proof your child does not trust what happens to the truth in your hands. That is painful, but it is also the doorway to changing everything. And this is where the whole problem gets even deeper than most parents realize. Because children do not only lie to avoid punishment. Very often, they lie to avoid a version of themselves they cannot bear to become in front of you. The disappointing child, the irresponsible child, the dramatic child, the weak child, the difficult child, the problem child. That is why so many lies are not even strategic in the adult sense. They are protective. A child forgets an assignment and says the teacher didn't collect it. A teen feels left out and says they just didn't feel like going. A child breaks something and says they found it that way. A teen hides a message and says it was nothing. A child says they are fine when they are very obviously not fine. And underneath all of those moments is often the same emotional logic. If I tell the truth, I lose control. If I tell the truth, I will be judged. If I tell the truth, this moment will become bigger than I can handle. If I tell the truth, I will not just have a problem, I will become the problem. This is why lying in families is so rarely just about honesty. It is about the emotional price of being known. That is the phrase I want you to remember. The emotional price of being known. In healthy parent-child relationships, that price stays low enough for truth to keep breathing. In strained relationships, that price keeps rising. A child tells the truth and gets interrogated, then corrected, then lectured, then watched more closely, then reminded of it later, then compared to a sibling, then treated like they are one bad choice away from ruining their future. At that point, the issue is no longer simple honesty. The issue is that truth has become dangerous to carry into the room. And once truth feels dangerous, children start learning survival behaviors. Some lie. Some go silent. Some become sarcastic. Some over-explain. Some become cold and flat. Some get angry before you can get angry first. Some become weirdly mature and tell you what you want to hear. Some children become so agreeable that parents think things are getting better, when really the child is just hiding better. That is one of the saddest things that can happen in a family. Not open rebellion, not obvious chaos, but a child slowly deciding that the most manageable version of the relationship is a filtered one. This is why parents need to be very careful with one habit that feels normal and even responsible. The habit of making every hard truth into a big moment. A child admits something small. The parent turns it into a life lesson. Then a speech about trust. Then a talk about character. Then a warning about the future. Then maybe a personal story. Then a mood that lasts the rest of the evening. Now, even if every word you said was technically correct, what did the child learn emotionally? One truth can take over the whole house. That lesson is powerful. And it teaches children to wait, to hide, to say less, to reveal only what has already been discovered, to confess late rather than early, to think, maybe I can fix this quietly before anyone knows. And when children begin thinking like that, the relationship has shifted from openness to damage control. The painful part is that many parents do this because they care deeply. They believe they are preventing future mistakes. They believe intensity proves seriousness. They believe if they do not make the moment feel big, the child will not learn. That children do not measure seriousness only by emotional volume. Sometimes a calm response carries more moral weight than a dramatic one. A steady parent who says, "This matters, we're going to deal with it, and I want the full truth," can be much more effective than a parent who floods the room with disappointment, fear, and overreaction. Why? Because calm leaves space for honesty. Intensity often crushes it. And this is especially true with teenagers. Teenagers are extremely sensitive to dignity. That does not mean they always act dignified. It means they are very sensitive to humiliation, control, and being treated like they are psychologically small. So when a parent corners a teen, mocks a teen, overreads a teen, or turns every struggle into a personality diagnosis, the teen does not usually become more honest. They become more private. And then parents often panic. They say, "My teen tells me nothing anymore. My child lies about everything. I don't even know what is real." But the real question is not only, why is my child hiding? The deeper question is, what has my child learned happens here when the truth is awkward, embarrassing, inconvenient, or unfinished? That answer changes everything. Because if the answer is, the truth becomes a lecture, then you know why they hide. If the answer is, the truth becomes shame, then you know why they hide. If the answer is, the truth makes my parent anxious, controlling, or disappointed for the rest of the day, then you know why they hide. And once you know that, the path forward gets much clearer. You stop trying to squeeze truth out of the child. You start making truth less punishing to bring to you. That does not mean zero consequences. It means smarter sequence. First, regulate the room. Then get the truth. Then understand the meaning. Then decide the consequence. Then repair the relationship if needed. Most parents accidentally reverse that. They start with reaction, then consequence, then pressure, then analysis. And by the time they finally want honesty, the child's nervous system has already shut the door. This is why emotionally intelligent parenting is not soft. It is strategic. It understands that if you want influence, you need access. And if you want access, your child has to believe that the truth will not instantly explode in their face. Now let's talk about what children actually need in these moments. They need boundaries, yes. They need accountability, yes. They need honesty, absolutely. But they also need a parent who can stay in the role of leader without turning into a prosecutor. There is a huge difference between those two. A prosecutor is trying to catch, expose, corner, and prove. A leader is trying to understand, guide, contain, and teach. A prosecutor makes the child defend. A leader makes truth more possible. And children know the difference faster than adults think. They know when you are listening for the full story, and they know when you are listening for evidence. This is why tone matters so much. Facial expression matters. Timing matters. What you say first matters. If the first thing out of your mouth makes the child feel stupid, guilty, dramatic, or trapped, then you may still get information, but you are not building trust. And trust is what decides whether your child comes to you next time before the problem grows bigger. This is the part many parents miss. Your reaction to one lie is shaping the next truth, every single time. Your reaction teaches your child whether honesty makes life clearer or harder, whether mistakes can be brought into the open, whether being known is survivable, whether this family uses truth to solve problems or to intensify them. And if you want your child to become more honest over time, you need to think in patterns, not moments. Not, how do I win this conversation? But, what am I teaching my child about truth inside this relationship? That question is much more powerful. Because a child who fears your reaction may stop lying in front of you and still become more secretive behind you. That is not trust. That is adaptation. Real trust looks different. Real trust looks like a child telling you the smaller truth sooner. A teen admitting the awkward thing before they are forced. A child saying, "I need to tell you something," and not sounding like they are walking to the edge of a cliff. A teen being honest about a mistake without assuming the house will emotionally collapse. That is what parents actually want. Not perfect obedience, not robotic honesty. Trust. And trust grows where dignity survives. This is why one of the most important phrases in family psychology is this: correct the behavior without crushing the person. That is the balance. You can say, "That was dishonest," and still leave room for your child to recover. You can say, "This broke trust," and still communicate, "You are not broken." You can say, "There will be a consequence," and still make the room feel emotionally safe enough for the whole truth to emerge. That combination changes families, because children who feel emotionally cornered tend to protect themselves. Children who feel emotionally contained are much more likely to re-enter the relationship. And that re-entry matters. It matters after a lie, after a bad decision, after a secret, after a broken rule, after a moment of disrespect. after a painful misunderstanding, after the parent gets it wrong too, especially after that. Because one of the greatest opportunities in parenting happens after you mishandle something. Not because mistakes are good, but because repair teaches what perfection never can. When a parent comes back and says, "I made that harder to tell me than I should have," something profound happens. The child learns that truth can move both ways. The child learns that authority does not have to be ego-protected. The child learns that a strong adult can admit impact without collapsing. The child learns that relationships can bend without breaking. That is not a small lesson. That is a lifelong lesson. It affects friendship, love, marriage, conflict, trust, self-respect, the ability to tell the truth under pressure. So if this video has helped you see your child differently, subscribe to the channel and share this with one person you truly trust, someone who cares about parenting, family, and what really happens inside the emotional life of a child. Because a lot of people are trying to raise good kids without realizing they may be making honesty feel heavier than hiding. And once you see that, you start hearing your child differently. You hear that fine may mean unsafe. You hear that nothing may mean overloaded. You hear that "I forgot" may carry shame. You hear that "it's not a big deal" may mean "I cannot handle your reaction if this becomes big." You hear that lying is not always rebellion. Sometimes it is the child's attempt to keep some control over how much emotional pain enters the room. That does not excuse dishonesty, but it explains why punishment alone so often fails. Because punishment may stop a behavior temporarily, it does not automatically make truth safer next time. And if truth is not safer next time, the problem simply changes shape. It becomes better hiding, cleaner stories, more distance, more performance, more selective honesty, more emotional separation inside the same family. That is why the real work is deeper. The real work is becoming the kind of parent who can hear something hard without making the child wish they had stayed silent. Read that again in your mind. Can my child tell me something difficult without regretting honesty 5 seconds later? That question reveals more about the health of a relationship than almost anything else. Because children do not become truthful mainly because we lecture them about values. They become more truthful when truth feels bearable in connection. And that means the goal is not just raising a child who fears lying. The goal is raising a child who believes honesty as a place to land. A place where they can still be guided, still be corrected, still face consequences, but not be emotionally demolished. That is where real parent-child trust begins. Not in perfect homes, not with perfect parents, but in homes where truth is handled with enough steadiness that children do not have to choose between honesty and emotional survival. So the next time your child changes an answer, looks away, gets defensive, shrugs, says nothing, or gives you that strangely flat version of the story, pause before you jump straight to control. Ask yourself one question. What is the emotional price of truth in this moment? Because if that price is too high, your child may not be choosing between right and wrong. They may be choosing between exposure and protection. And if you can lower that price without lowering the standard, you will have something much more powerful than forced honesty. You will have a child who slowly learns that the truth is safe enough to bring home.